the core of what's going on. They are observing us now, Alex. You have to understand, everything that we are saying is being monitored. You know, when the Pope resigned, what happened in the Vatican, there was a big storm and there was a lightning that just went on top. You see, like this night, there's a lightning, you see? Experts from the Vatican themselves admitted there is a very close link between pedophilia and Satanism. Then they used to have these ambulances, these fake ambulances parked in front of Termini station, and they used to pick up these young Romanian kids, 14-year-old kids, and bring them directly into the Vatican. So basically, ciao. So they might tell us something, don't worry. But we will try to be the most diplomatic possible, because they are our friends, you know. Sì, nessun problema.
Piazza non si possono.
Sì. We are here in Rome. My name is Leo Zagami. I was born here on the 5th of March 1970 in what is known as the Vatican Hospital par excellence, which is the Hospital Gemelli where John Paul II used to go. I was born within this Vatican background, so I'm here actually talking about what I know best, which is my city and my Catholic background. It's power, and it's pure power. It's a pure power structure.
That's what O'Brien says in 1984 when he's torturing Winston. He goes, "We're the priest of power. We're total pragmatists. There's nothing we follow but trampling and being trampled upon."
There was once an American, I don't want to say who, a film director who came here, and basically we filmed something in a church. When they actually thrown us out of the church, the guy said, "But I believe in Jesus Christ." You know what the Vatican guy said? "We don't care about Jesus here. This is the Vatican." This September 2015, is very important because the Pope Francis, is arriving in the United States of America, and is doing this officially for the first time to hush up the world government with his speech in Congress, with his visit at the United Nations, with what is really the conclusion of 500 years history of the Jesuits taking control of the Vatican. The Jesuit order was born 500 years ago with Ignazio Loyola, and since then it became the most powerful order in Christianity. Now they have their own Pope, even if they were kicked out from the Vatican for a brief time. And what they're going to be doing in September in the United States of America is critically important for the New World Order. A lot of people before used to say to me, "Why are you mentioning the Vatican in relation with the New World Order? It doesn't have anything to do with one with the other." Instead, it has everything to do with one and the other, because, as I showed to Alex Jones here in Rome, the Vatican is everything but a religion. It is a state, it is politics, and in this influential political game that you are playing also in the United States of America with the next president, the Vatican has, of course, their own candidate of choice. I know that a lot of people are talking about Hillary because she has also Jesuit connections that are very much out there, but Jeb Bush is the candidate of choice for the Vatican because he's a Knights of Columbus, he's a Catholic, and at the end of the day, he responds to a Grand Master, who is Carl Anderson, who sits in the seat of power in what is the Vatican Bank. The Vatican Bank, who for decades has been recycling money from drug cartels, from mafia, laundering this money. They have tried in the last few years to correct all this, and now they brought a more open Vatican to the world, where they claim that everything is transparent, but nothing is transparent inside the Vatican, and nothing is as it appears in the Vatican. So what is happening with this Pope, who is a communist? Of course he's a communist. The Jesuits invented communism. And who is somebody who wants to bring this world government scenario in with his own world parliament of religions, which is coming into fruition. All this because the New World Order doesn't want a specific religion to control all others, but in the end, there is actually somebody who is taking control of this, and this is the Jesuits and the Vatican here in Rome, together, of course, with Israel. Since the Second Vatican Council, they have made this deal, they've been linked together, and so that's what I'm trying to denounce for many years, that there is critically important to understand what happens in the Vatican to then understand the rest of the New World Order, including the Club Bilderberg, because the Club Bilderberg came into Rome not so long ago, a couple of years ago, to have a very private meeting, and it was actually some news coverage was done, but nobody really knows what they were talking about. But we know that they went into the Vatican Museum, and the Vatican Museum was the place where traditionally all spies used to meet during the Cold War. So this is also something that maybe not many people know, because they think the Vatican Museum is just a touristy place. No, amongst the tourists, it was well known that you can always find a spy there, and that information between intelligence agencies will be exchanged within Vatican walls in the Vatican Museum. The Jesuits, they were welcomed back into the Vatican only in 1814, because they were kicked out of the Vatican in 1773. They were illegal. They were sent out of Rome. They were sent out of all the Catholic countries. And then in 1814, after the death of Napoleon, they came back into the Vatican with only one plot, to take control of power. And now they have, of course, a Jesuit Pope. So the whole scenario is completely under control, because the Jesuits at the same time have a link, very close link, with the Freemasons of the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite. So there is also a link amongst the Jesuits with Freemasonry, especially in the Catholic countries, even more than the Protestant ones. So this is what is happening now. And then at the same time, we have this whole scenario of satanic masses that are going on inside the Vatican with these pedophile rings. It's difficult because I predicted on different interviews, and it would be difficult to go and find which exactly he's mentioning, but I think that we are talking here about the interview with Project Camelot. When they asked me about the next Pope, they talked about a Black Pope. Black Pope is the general of the Jesuits. As I said, his power is very strong because the Civ, as we mentioned before, is just a small creation of what is the Jesuit intelligence apparatus. So I then talk to them about the fact that Black Pope could mean also not only black in the sense of color black, because of course that is also the intention of having a Black Pope from Africa as the next Pope after Pope Francis. But also Black Pope is the name, the code name that they give to the general of the Jesuits and to a Jesuit even becoming Pope. So in a way this prophecy of the Black Pope relates to Pope Francis. And there is more than one prophecies, apart from the prophecy of St. Malachi, that we don't know if they were written by Nostradamus or whoever, but there is many prophecies that relate to this day and age and what's happening in the Vatican. We have two popes. It's the first time in a long time in history, the second time, like we talked earlier with Alex about it. And of course, it's very strange to have two popes. But like I said to Alex, this pope was forced, Ratzinger was forced out by the Jesuits. And the real guy who orchestrated everything died just after orchestrating all this, which is this big cardinal. He died of an old age, which was Cardinal Martini, who was a big cardinal from Milan. And this cardinal, though, was also very connected with Israel. He actually asked to be buried in Israel. And he was a Jesuit. So you see also this connection between the Jesuits and Israel is very close. At the end of the 70s in Afghanistan, Zabriskie initiated a guy called Osama bin Laden. He actually initiated him into a transnational lodge, part of the Ur lodges. This is information that was published then recently in Italy in a book by an ex-worshipper master, past worshipper master of the Montesion Lodge, which is recognized by American obediences because part of the Grand Orient of Italy, Gioele Magaldi. He denounced that Zabriskie actually initiated Osama bin Laden, and later on when they had to bring away, I mean, when the Al-Qaeda situation and Osama bin Laden had to, of course, retire, they brought this initiation to another man who was at the time very popular, because if you had a problem in any of the prisons in Iraq, the Americans used to call al-Baghdadi. So they picked up al-Baghdadi, who is also a man who is quite well educated, and they said, okay, we initiate you. They initiated him into the Ator Pentalph Lodge, and they made him the head of ISIS, which is this new tool that they're using to bring a massive terror and to also create basically a non-state which doesn't pay taxes on the oil it exports, and it floods the market with cheap oil that it's brought in then from Turkey. This is what is happening nowadays, and if people believe that ISIS is true Muslims, they are completely wrong, because it has nothing to do with Islam. The problem with Islam is that they don't denounce this reality. They should denounce this Masonic reality taking control of their leaders. There is especially a very dangerous leader who is involved in all this, who is pushing for this caliphate, who is Fethullah Gulen. He's been actually accused of terrorism by the Turkish authorities in December 2014, but he's living in Pennsylvania protected by the American authorities. And if you go and check, Fethullah Gulen is actually a CIA agent and a CIA asset with his whole organization, which includes 500 schools worldwide, and he works together with the Jesuits. In fact, the book that he wrote, which talks about New World Order in one of the chapters, which is actually dedicated to the New World Order, has a preface written by Thomas Michel, who used to be the Secretary of the Interreligious Affairs for the Jesuits, and now there is a lot of fear here in Rome that during the Jubileum something terrible will happen, because we literally don't have the security, the capability to welcome millions of people these days in Rome and protect ourselves from ISIS, especially when you have technology of all kinds like drones and other things, you know. We have problems here with drones, so they had built new security systems in case drones try to fly over the Vatican. They try to mishmash the frequencies and stuff so they can't fly over, you see. So there is also a lot of agents who are around the piazza at all time, checking, of course, on people of obvious Arab origin or Islamic faith, but you can never be so certain, because we all know that these terrorists are very good to disguise themselves. So the biggest fear today is the terrorists, also because ISIS has announced that they want to conquer Rome. This is what they said, and this is what they want to do. And to conquer Rome, they want something really strong to happen in Rome, because they said that the Antichrist is arriving. This is what ISIS has said these days, that they want to conquer Rome, and the primal attack has to be here. So everybody is waiting with anticipation to what's going to happen from November onwards. I actually met the Pope.
Sorry, go ahead.
I met the Pope once in my life. It was December 2013. I was involved politically in Italy with this Forks revolution. We got even the police to take off their helmets. It was a pacific revolution. The Pope invited us. I came here to the Vatican, and what did I do? I brought with me a copy of an icon of the Holy Mary of the Debitori, which means of the people who are in debt. And I said, if you are like in the old days, dear Pope, in the old days the Pope could announce the cancellation of all debt, and that will save our country, you know, save all the countries. You understand? So basically, ciao. So they might tell us something. Don't worry, but we will try to be the most diplomatic possible, because they are our friends, you know. Sì, nessun problema.
Piazza non si possono.
Sì. What he said about Schulz and the mafia that rules the European community, the German mafia of the Club Bilderberg, is completely honest, and is completely, I mean, you can see what's happening right now. Italy, since Berlusconi left, has been, and since Gaddafi was savagely killed by the New World Order, let's remember also that, because Gaddafi was, he said, Gaddafi, one thing, without me here, it would be a complete mess. And now Italy is being invaded by immigrants every day. This is part of what is known as the Kalergi plan. I invite all the researchers of the New World Order who are viewing us on InfoWars to go and check the Kalergi plan by Count Kalergi. There's still a Kalergi award given every year to European leaders like Angela Merkel. And this Count, half Japanese, half Austrian, he's one of the main reasons why we have the European Union. He was a Freemason of the Humanitas Lodge initially, then he went to another transnational lodge. But Count Kalergi devised this plan whereby he wants to destroy the ethnicity of every European. He wants Europe to not have anymore their own single ethnicity. And that's why they're pushing all these immigrants to cross the Mediterranean and come into Europe. They are basically destroying Europe by doing that. We don't have anything racistic against anyone, of course, but what they're doing is completely criminal. And they're actually financing these people once they come to Italy. They have more rights than the Italians. They give them houses, they give them hotels, they even give them 30 euro a day so they can buy and pay for the mobile phones, for their things. I mean, they're treated better. There is no social security here in Italy, but still, these immigrants have everything. So Italians are, of course, getting more and more mad every day. And this is all because of the Kalergi plan to destroy the ethnicity of Europeans. We are going now in front of the headquarters of the Jesuits. We will go a second and see who's there, and then we will go to the headquarters of the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre. In this road, side road that very few people visit, especially tourists, you have the headquarters of the Jesuits, which is said to be the most powerful place in the world. Compagnia di Gesù, Curia Generalizia. He is the headquarters of the general of the Jesuits, it's said. Generally, because it's the headquarters of the Jesuits. So this is the place, this building, where actually the power structure is decided. When Pope Francis meets with the Adolf Nicholas, they have special meetings here where they decide of all the future of the church. And it's a pity that now it's not open, but when it's open, here on the side you have this symbol, because the symbol of the Jesuit is a very particular symbol. And you find a similar symbol also in the flag in Argentina. And that's not the case. It's not a coincidence, because South America is deeply embedded in Jesuitry. So actually, the Jesuits, this moment of time, have all the power. But there is an order in the Vatican that has a much older history, which is the Dominican order, founded by San Domenico, which basically the Dominican order was in charge of the Inquisition before the Jesuit came into the equation. And they are the ones at the moment who seem more inclined in condemning what's going on in the church. And there is a whole lot of conservative people in the Catholic faith that don't accept the compromises that were imposed by the Second Vatican Council. Even the fact of not having the Mass anymore in Latin but in a common language, all of this is been taken by these conservatives who are, a lot of them, also very close to what Monsignor Lefebvre was, you know, the famous Lefebvrians, but others are simply conservative Catholics that don't accept what the Jesuits are doing to the Church and what the Catholic Church is becoming these days, the home of relativism, the home of anything goes, and so the cults that are also judged as dangerous for the Church are eliminated. Like, for example, lately the Medjugorje cult, the visions of the Holy Mary that went on in Yugoslavia for a long time, in the ex-Yugoslavia, now they are been basically casted out of the Vatican as just nonsense, because they are not useful anymore to the cause, and they could actually damage the Church, because with these prophecies of that they came up of the Church being in decline and all this, they don't want to hear all this anymore. In 1999 there was a priest called Marinelli, not to be confused with Marinelli, the general who was in charge of the security in the Vatican for a long time. Well, this priest wrote a book under the name I Millenari. And in this book, that was immediately censored by the Vatican, and they tried to stop the publication of it, for the first time they talk about the way the priests in the Vatican get blackmailed, especially gay priests. They call it the giavellotto dell'omosessualità. And basically what they do is like they facilitate these people in rising through the hierarchy of the Catholic Church, but knowing of their weaknesses, they then use them against them. And in the last few years, what happened is that the ex-Cardinal, ex-Secretary of State, Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone, before Ratzinger left, when he was still in charge, he ordered a 1-year monitoring of every single person that was going inside the Vatican. So he took down the names of the drug dealers, the prostitutes, the male prostitutes, everybody that went. And then, thanks to this, he's now the most powerful person within the Vatican, apart from the general of the Jesuits. He's, let's say, the main competition to Pope Francis is Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone, which has, on the contrary of Pope Francis, who lives in Santa Marta, we have Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone, who basically is living in a 700 square meters penthouse, and he gave a few months ago a lavish dinner with caviar, the best wines and everything, for only 30, 40 chosen people. And there we had all the heads of Freemasonry, of the various knighthoods, of the Illuminati, because in Italy we have an academy of the Illuminati which is linked to the Vatican, which is controlled by a Grand Master called Giuliano Di Bernardo, and this is a professor. He's a professor in a university in northern Italy. He's been a Grand Master of Italian Freemasonry until 1993 for the Grand Orient of Italy. Then he became the Grand Master and founder of the regular Grand Lodge of Italy. And then in 2002 he founded officially the Academy of the Illuminati, and that is based in Piazza di Spagna officially, that's where it's based. And basically the Academy of the Illuminati is linked with Tarcisio Bertone, and with the Jesuits also at the same time. So there is not really any, I can say that these days in the Vatican, more or less, they have found a balance of power in between different parts. But definitely it plays a very big role, also Freemasonry, in this balancing of power in the Vatican, because we have a lot of Freemasonry in the Vatican. There is 4 lodges that operate within the Vatican walls. And at the same time, we have a lot of lodges outside of the Vatican walls that work in support of the Vatican. There, where the Vatican doesn't have official relations with these countries, Freemasonry helps them fill the gap. So there is also this to be said. So there was actually the last James Bond movie that was shot along this road. They gave several $1 million to Rome, so they could use this whole road as a setup for the movie. And the actual, the interesting thing about this last James Bond movie is that actually it talks about the secret society. There is some kind of Illuminati concept going on in the last James Bond movie, and it's not a coincidence, of course, because what they do is to program people through Hollywood and through the media. So also every subject that is discussed in movies is always important for them to program people for the next events.
Well, sure, Spectre's infiltrating everything.
Yes, and it's that
Do
is
they
the
say in
concept.
Spectre it's the Jesuits?
They don't, of course, but I mean, they never show the Jesuits are in control of that kind of power. You will always see the CIA in control of that kind of power. So basically, they never show the Jesuits are being in control of this kind of power. They like to show always these agents, you know. I think there was that movie that came out a few years ago about the biggest scandal, the guy who gave the information from the CIA was investigated by the FBI, was arrested for espionage.
Yeah.
How is it that? And if you go and check that movie, they talk about the Jesuits inside the CIA. It's like a very important thing to come from a Jesuit background if you're an intelligence officer. Just like it is, for example, in England, to come from an aristocratic background to be an intelligence officer. There is certain things, you know. But Freemasonry here in the Vatican is very powerful because it's then linked directly with the Duke of Kent. And the Duke of Kent, he didn't convert himself, but his son converted to Catholicism and married within the Vatican. You know that? The son of the Grand Master of English Freemasonry, the Duke of Kent, he married inside the Vatican as a Catholic. This is something, and also his wife became a Catholic, but is still on the throne of succession because she did that after they were married. Otherwise, he will not be anymore in the throne of in the line of succession for the throne, the Duke of Kent. I think that the elections in America is a very important subject, but I also think that at this moment in time, we have a Pope that is not condemning microchipping, something that the Orthodox Church is condemning, something that the Patriarch of the Orthodox Church in Russia condemned, which is the microchip as the mark of the beast. The Pope has never said anything about that. They take a stand which is typical of the New World Order. They don't want to say anything against the microchipping, and this is already a negative thing. And also, of course, the Cold War era this is the second Cold War era that is starting again. And in Ukraine, where it's where it all started, actually before the civil riots and everything, the first clashes were between the Orthodox and the Catholic factions. And also we know that Soros, for example, you know who Soros is, no? Soros backs the Knights of San Stanislaus, which is one of the most powerful orders in the Catholic world that takes care of the eastern countries. They have their own knighthood order that takes care of that, and so of course the Pope is also involved in this new Cold War against Russia. But at the same time, Putin is trying to stay on this world setup because, of course, this world setup is like a prison where everybody needs to be part of these clubs. Otherwise, if you are out of the clubs or if you are out of the setup, you can't make business anymore. You're cut off. We are about to go into the headquarters of the most powerful knighthood in the Vatican. That is the side entrance where we're going to go in, and this is the main entrance. Come and see. This building is not even Vatican territory. This is territory of the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre, the most powerful order of the Vatican. See the knight? Watch the writing on top of the door. Ordo Equestris Santo Sepulchri Essere Illuminati. This is not even Vatican territory. They have their own private territory like the Knights of Malta. This is their own territory. So now we're going to go in a foreign land, which is even foreign to the Vatican. This is a very nice place. It's the courtyard of the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre. And of course here we are in another state. So when you come through this little gate here, it's not even Vatican territory anymore. This is a state that the Vatican has donated to their knights. So this inside is the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre place, headquarters, where the military power of the Vatican is decided, together with the Jesuits.
And then they've got their people as
And then they have the Knights of Malta, of course, which are the other ones.
So if a U.S. general is part of this order, does he owe his allegiance to the president or to this order?
This order. That's always. All these people, even Jeb Bush, is first to the order and then to whatever he has to pledge allegiance in America.
Why did we see Tony Blair join an order? Didn't he join them?
He became Catholic, and of course then he could join orders of Catholic Church. But we have also Jimmy Savile, who was the worst pedophile in English history, who was knighted by John Paul II, as you know, and he was made a knight by the Pope.
He was like best buddies with Prince Charles.
Of course, because all these people, England has this big pedophile rings, and you know how.
So that's how they take over: is they get their people in, they control.
For example, Jimmy Savile was given the knighthood, so then he, with his knighthood, could go to all the Catholic hospitals and then basically rape little kids. So I mean, it's a terrible thing. What has been happening with pedophilia in the Vatican is a disgraceful thing. There has not only been tolerance, and even Ratzinger closed more than one eye, and that's why then he was kicked out so easily, because he has so many skeletons in the closet that obviously they all come out at one point or the other.
Leo, what is the ultimate goal of the Jesuits? Has it changed over time? Explain how it was founded to us and where you think it's going, because you've been proven to be pretty accurate so far.
Well, the Jesuit order was founded by St. Ignatius Loyola. He was actually arrested 5 times by the Inquisition before he became he could actually open the order and the Company of Jesus. So what happened is very interesting, because Ignatius Loyola was actually accused of being a magician, somebody who was well versed in hypnotism. And what he did as soon as he established his order was to send off to the east his missionaries, so to become really powerful, because he made strong alliances with China and Japan back in the days that still to this day are considered like very important for the Jesuits and for those countries. So in the extreme east. When it comes down to the Jesuits, their ultimate goal is to protect now the church from the last decline that they were falling into, you know, with this trap of pedophilia, also with the economic situation, because apparently the knighthoods have big debts. And especially the Knights of Malta have some very huge debts that have not surfaced yet. So all this emergency, in this emergency situation, the Vatican basically had to pick up this situation. The Jesuits are basically, their ultimate aim is to control and to have power over the church and over the intellectual property of every symbol on the planet. They are actually, the Jesuits, by being so linked to the intellectual establishment, to the universities, it's there where they create the leaders of the future, and it's there where they don't care about Christianity. The ultimate goal is to have a new world order with a one-world religion that is the same for everybody.
Under collectivism.
Yes.
And then they're tax exempt above the law.
It's called relativism. Recently, the New York Times and all the American media have talked about the decadence of Rome. The city is disgusting. It's literally falling into pieces. And that's because we have a communist mayor who is called Marino. He is what we call a catto-communist, which is basically another Vatican agent. And he's ruining the city. He's not taking care of it, and he's in front of the eyes of the whole world. So Romans now see people defecating in full daytime in front of Termini station. There is people, actually yesterday they filmed somebody taking a bath in front of the parliament inside of one of the fountains. I mean, we are talking about complete decadence, and this is what they want to do. They want to make this city fall into pieces and destroy the whole of the magic of what Rome used to be, which unfortunately is very sad for me as a Roman.
Action.
So the last few days I also let Alex into the variety of perversions that mingle and spring around the Vatican, let's say, no? They are part of this Vatican decadence, of this obvious Vatican decadence. For example, the gay lobby has their own meeting points, and the gay lobby in the Vatican has even a website, which is of course very secured, for gay priests. And they meet up at this library, the Feltrinelli Library in Piazza di Spagna, at the religious and philosophical section, every day around 8 o'clock, and then they go from there to what is the biggest gay sauna in Italy. But this biggest gay sauna in Italy is actually built in a building which is a property of the Vatican, and of course the building is also was bought by Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone, which is this character we just described, who is very powerful these days in the Vatican, and we call the Pink Pope. When it comes down to the sex cults in the Vatican, they're very important, because when it comes to sex cults, the link then goes directly with pedophilia and Satanism. Like even experts from the Vatican themselves admitted, there is a very close link between pedophilia and Satanism. And also a lot of priests like to perform themselves the satanic masses around Rome. And they perform them in the area where usually the Pope goes on holiday, near Castel Gandolfo, in the area where you have also Lake Nemi, in those forests around there. They perform these black masses, and there is a Catholic priest who act as a satanic priest, because the moment in which they act as satanic priest is the moment in which they can really liberate themselves of other perversions. They can do drugs, they can go with women, with men, with everything, and they can do all kinds of things. So the sex cults are very powerful. Like, for example, we had in the Vatican, there is a guy who now even Pope Francis had to kick out of the Vatican, but Assange from WikiLeaks called him Jessica. That's his code name. and he was basically the master of ceremony for Pope Ratzinger, and he himself celebrated these really strange masses and rituals with drag queens present, just before going to then celebrate Mass with the Pope. This is and then there was a big scandal. There was a big scandal actually that went on and went into the news in Italy for a couple of days, when they discovered that near the Termini station, where now CNN is making all these documentaries lately to show that there is prostitution from these new arrivals, from the, like the immigrants that get arrived in Italy, that they are bringing to Italy. Basically, CNN is showing that at the Termini station there is a lot of prostitution from minors, from young kids. Well, there was a scandal here in Italy at a certain point in 2013. I think it was June 2013. It went on the news for 2 days, then it was erased. They go into this My Bar and in these places around the Termini station to pick up these young kids, and then they used to have these ambulances, these fake ambulances parked in front of Termini station, and they used to pick up these young Romanian kids, 14-year-old kids, and bring them directly into the Vatican. This was unfortunately what is going on, and what I talk about also in my book, because of course this is stuff that came out in the news, there is a lot of evidence, and then the only thing is that at an international level the media don't talk about these things, they don't report these things. So I'm trying to report on what is being silenced by the international media, and thanks to Infowars.com we are finally reporting to you today. The media will never tell you the truth, so you have to rely on people like Infowars to give you the truth, and also on books that can provide facts, evidence, not fiction. And this is one of these books. Leo Zagami, Pope Francis the Last Pope ? Is a book that is going to revolutionize your existence, and that brings clear evidence of what's happening here in Rome, which is very important and relating to the New World Order, and something that you definitely have to get to have a true perspective and a true conscience. Go on the website cccpublishing.com is this great publishing company that has the courage to bring out a book which is not an easy reading, but I can assure you gives you the right information. So go and get it. You find at Barnes & Noble or everywhere in the United States. It's Pope Francis the Last Pope ?
Globalists have controlled the mainstream media for a long time, but now they're expanding, making the weaponization even more vicious and deceptive. All the major networks are state-run.
We are partnering this year with the NFL.
The NFL has become a political weapon against the Second Amendment and pushes Obamacare. MSNBC tells us that our children belong to the state.
We have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families, and recognize that kids belong to whole communities.
The brainwashing media machine has been turned up on high, and it's time for humanity to double down on the true people's media and strike back against the tyrants that are destroying our civilization with their lies and fraud. We are the resistance. You are the resistance. You are the info war. It is more important than ever to realize that we are not the alternative media. We are the true media. The establishment dinosaur press is dying.
We are in an information war, and we are losing that war.
Join us at InfoWarsNews.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. Members can share their memberships with up to 11 people. By subscribing, you will literally be buying war bonds in the info war to expand our operation in the face of the tyrants. Join us at PrisonPlanet.tv.